Thank you very much. And hello, everyone. Good morning / good afternoon or evening, depending on where you are at the moment. Great to have you with us. This is the last of our membership month festival series we've been running for the last couple of weeks, recording all of these events to make them available to everybody afterwards as well. So if you missed any, you can go back and watch the recordings, which you will no doubt be able to find on our YouTube channel by the time you're watching this. Really excited this morning to be joined by Sia Papageorgiou to talk about certification and how being a member of the IABC, the International Association of Business Communicators, can help you get access to this amazing certification. Sia is the chair of the Global Communications Certification Council, oversee the certification, and also a communications consultant and trainer, joining us from Melbourne. And I was going to say sunny Melbourne, but I did that the other day and I don't know if it was or not. Is it sunny today?
It was sunny during the day and it's raining now, so a bit like London, actually.
It's very, very unpredictable. It makes me feel like I'm at home. And also joining us today is Andrew Morrison, who is Director of Corporate Affairs and Communications and a career and life coach. Andrew and I both sat the Scmp certification last year, so the Strategic Communication Management Professional certification. Sia is going to kick us off, giving us some background to the certification, and then Andrew and I are going to talk a little bit about the first-hand experience of sitting it in London last December. And as a heads up right now, there is another date coming up on the 2nd of December in London for anyone who might be interested in sitting the exam this year. A nice one to tick off the list before the year is out, if you're interested. So with that, I shall hand over to you, Sia, to kick things off for us.
Thank you so much, Simon. Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for having me this evening. Greetings from Melbourne, Australia. So I thought I would kick off by sharing with you what certifications are available through the Global Communications Certification Council, or GCCC, as I will refer to it from now on, including the eligibility criteria. I will then talk to you about the steps to becoming certified through the GCCC and what you need to do to prepare for the exam and maintain your certification. And I will end by showing you a very brief video. I think it goes for about 1 minute 14 seconds that talks about the value of GCCC certification. So let's kick off. And I'm very excited that you have an exam on the 2nd of December. That's a fantastic way to end the year. So there are 2 certifications available through the GCCC. The first is the Scmp, or the Communication Management Professional, and that is for communication professionals who have been working in communication for at least 6 years. To be eligible to sit the exam, the Scmp exam, you have to demonstrate not only that 6 years of experience, but you need to demonstrate 2 years of education. And I want to point out too that the education doesn't have to be in communication, okay? So if you have a Bachelor of Science, for example, that's absolutely fine. What you do need to do though is in addition to that 6 years of experience, you need to demonstrate or include in your application 40 clock hours of training. Okay, and I'll tell you about what counts as training in a moment. So that's the Scmp. If you have more than 6 years of experience, or you don't have formal education to include, you must demonstrate at least 8 years of work experience and that 40 clock hours of training I mentioned earlier. So that is the Scmp certification, which is the first. And you don't have to do the Scmp first before you pursue the Scmp. It's whatever you are eligible for. It's based on your skills. It's based on your experience. It's based on where you are in your career, okay? The second certification, and the one that I have and Simon has and Andrew has, is the Scmp certification, or the Strategic Communication Management Professional certification. That certification is for communication professionals who have experience providing strategic counsel to their organization's leadership. They have demonstrated leadership, worked in leadership roles in their organizations, in their career. And to be eligible to sit the Scmp exam, you have to demonstrate at least 11 years of communication work experience. In addition, you have to demonstrate 20 clock hours of training. Okay, now for both the Scmp and the Scmp, that 20 clock hours or 40 clock hours that you have to show can be training that you've participated in over the previous 2 years when you make your application. So it's not training you have to have done in 2021, for example, that counts 2 years prior to making your application, okay? The additional recommendation, however, for the SCMP is that you need to provide a letter of recommendation. Now, that letter of recommendation can come from either a mentee, okay? So it's all about leadership and demonstrating leadership. Now, if you are a mentor, okay, then you can provide a letter of recommendation from your mentee or for an organization that you've done pro bono work for. And it also includes any volunteer work you've done with IABC. Okay, so if you are on the board of IABC, then that counts, and we can accept a letter of recommendation from IABC. Now, one thing we've done at the GCCC over the last 6 months is develop a very comprehensive pack of information that will help chapters and regions around the world to not only promote certification to their members, but help their members pursue the certifications and prepare for the exam. And part of that pack includes a couple of resources which you may find useful. The first is a letter that you can share with your employer if you are looking to ask your employer to pay for your certification, okay? So that's a very handy template that you can modify and share with your employer. The second is for those pursuing the SCMP certification, and that is a letter of recommendation template, which again, you can modify. So Laura, you mentioned on LinkedIn that you are pursuing or looking to pursue the CMP. So that doesn't actually apply to you, but there are others in that group that are looking to pursue, or in the future, if you wanted to pursue SCMP, being a chapter leader or a regional leader absolutely counts towards your certification. So there are those resources there available to you. Now, in terms of what counts as training, any type of skill-based course, including webinars, things you've done through IABC, this session counts towards your clock hours of training. So this session goes for 45 minutes. That's 45 minutes that counts towards your 40 or 20 hours of clock hours of training. Any other event you've participated in through IABC, any other communication event you've participated in through any other association, doesn't just have to be the IABC, anything you've done in your workplace around communication or around leadership, and things like that. Anything you've done through distance learning companies or through a consultancy or anything. And there are further instructions in the GCCC Candidate Handbook, which is a very comprehensive document that has a lot of information around applying for the certifications, preparing for the certifications, and what you need to do after you're certified, okay? So I would encourage you to refer to that document. It's available on the GCCC's website under Study Resources. And so I also wanted to just tell you about three ways that we are different to other communication certification programs. And this is really what sets us apart from other programs. The first is that we are open to all communication professionals around the world. You don't have to be an IABC member to participate in certification. And we absolutely have certificants who are not members of IABC. And you don't have to be a member of any communication association to participate. It's open to all communication professionals. The second thing is we are the only communication certification program that is based on a global body of communication knowledge. Okay, so consistent standards is something I think that has been missing from our profession for far too long. And this is based on the global standard of the communication profession, which is available on IABC's website. So that body of knowledge talks about the role of the communication professional, you know, what we should be doing as communication professionals, including things like acting ethically, following a strategy, conducting an analysis to support our work, providing context about the organization's internal and external environment, engaging with our audiences and with our stakeholders, and providing a consistent story for internal and external audiences. And finally, and probably the most important, is that our certification program is the only certification program in the world that meets ISO standards, okay? In this case, it's ISO 17024, which is the standard for the certification of individuals. No other communication certification body can make that claim. And that means that our certification programs, so both the CMP and the SCMP, are the only certification programs in the world that carry the same meaning and weight wherever you go. Okay, so they meet the rigorous ISO standards, which is something that we have been pursuing for many years and something we are very, very proud of. Okay, so they're the two certifications that are available currently through the GCCC. And please, if you have questions, by all means, just pop them in the chat and I'm very happy to answer them on the fly. In terms of the exam experience, and I know that Andrew and Simon will share with you about their own personal experiences, but in terms of what's included in the exam, each exam, whether you sit the CMP or the SCMP, run for a period of 3 hours. Our research indicated, we conducted some research through the GCCC earlier this year, that the average time to complete the exam, and certainly that was my personal experience, is around 2 hours. So 3 hours is more than enough time to answer 100 multiple choice questions. Each question has 4 potential answers, and there's only one correct answer for each, okay? So there are 100 of those questions. Right now, 64% of those who sit the CMP will pass, and 87 for the SCMP, okay? There are 294 certificates around the world right now, and the majority of those are in Canada. Just a bit of a fun fact there. In terms of the CMP, I will also share a couple of other details that are not widely known, and that is the pass score for the CMP is 71%. Okay, so as long as you get 71 out of 100, you will pass your CMP exam. The average score for those who sit the exam is around, right now, 71.5%, and that's for the CMP. The SCMP, as it says here, is an 87% pass rate. The pass score right now is 58%. Okay, so as long as you get 58 out of 100, you will pass the SCMP. The average score, however, is a lot higher, and that is about 76.7%. for the SCMP. Now, in terms of what it costs to apply and sit the exam, there is a separate application fee and then an exam fee. So step 1 is to make your application. Now, given you have an exam scheduled on the 2nd of December, you will, I would encourage you to get your applications in as soon as you can. We usually encourage people to apply at least a month before the scheduled exam, okay? Because you will need to include details around your work experience, details around your clock hours of training. You'll need to provide the names and details of those who can verify those details. It's not a reference, it's just merely a verification that what you are saying is true and correct. And then the GCCC will assess your application, and if they deem you eligible, they will notify you of that fact, and you will be invited to apply to sit an exam. Now, you can theoretically sit an exam anywhere in the world right now. It doesn't have to be in your hometown, and you have 2 years from that notification to sit the exam. So even if you are thinking and maybe not going to make the 2nd, I would still encourage you to make your application, get your eligibility in, and then you can have more time to think about it next year, okay? Right now, the only way to sit an exam is physically, okay, in a physical location with proctors that are in the room with you. Come January, we will be launching live remote proctoring, which is something we're very, very excited about at the GCCC, and will mean that you can take the exam anywhere you want, in the comfort of your own home, 24/7, in your pajamas, if you like, okay, and with a live proctor supervising what you do. So that is something that we are currently working on, but we had to pursue our ANSI accreditation before we could, our ISO accreditation before we did that. So that's something that we're really, really excited about. So in terms of cost, just very quickly, and these details are available on our website, it costs $100, all costs are in US dollars, $100 to make the application, and currently $400 to sit the exam. So a total of $500 US for members. There is a member month code that is going to be shared through IBC networks. where you get 25% off your application fee during member month. Okay, I have those details and I could pass them on to you, Simon, but I don't think the system has been set up just yet. It's something we're just working on right now. So $100 and $400 to apply. If you are not a member of IABC, it will cost you $400 to make your application and $400 to sit the exam. So a total of $800. Okay. Just very quickly, these are the domains for which you are measured against in the exam. So the CMP has 5 domains, the Scmp has 6 domains. There is a part of the candidate handbook has a job task analysis attached to each of the certifications. Now that job task analysis is available as a download on our website, the GCCC's website, under the tab of study resources. And you can look at what knowledge and behaviors and skills you are expected to have if you meet these standards, okay, these domains. So as you know, as I mentioned earlier, there are 100 questions on the exam. So we know that there are 20 questions on measurement, 16 on consistency, 7 on ethics, and so on and so forth, okay? And so my advice to you is have a look at these domains, look at where you think you may have gaps in, and brush up on those. So for me, when I went for the Scmp, because my focus is internal communication, I felt that I wasn't as strong in reputation management. And so I did a bit of work around reading up on reputation management, and I would absolutely encourage you to look at ethics. Okay, the IABC's Code of Ethics has is a wealth of information, and it's really that gray area where if you're going to be tripped up in the exam, it's going to be through the ethical dilemmas that you are presented with. So I absolutely encourage you to look at that. And then once you've sat your exam, so it's a 3-hour exam, and you'll pretty much find out within, say, 24 to 48 hours after the exam, you have to collect continuing professional development points. Certification is based on ongoing learning, and that is what keeps our skills current. That is what keeps us relevant in the workplace, and absolutely lifts the professionalism of our profession. So we have to collect professional development points. Now, the training that you have to demonstrate to apply for certification is based on clock hours of training, okay? So if you go to World Conference, for example, and you stay around for the 2 days, then that's 16 hours of clock of training that you participate in. However, post-certification, you need to collect points, and 40 points is what you need to collect every year. Let me tell you, 40 points is very doable. I'm getting 10 just for making this presentation to you, okay? If you attend workshops, okay, you get points. If you read articles, you get points. If you listen to podcasts, you get points. If you read blog posts, if you author blog posts and articles, you get points. So there's a number of ways, and they're all included in the guide for collecting ongoing professional development. This is really what keeps us relevant as communication professionals, okay? And so each year you need to complete your renewal application. It's all done online. It's very simple to do, and you pay $100 to renew that every single year. So that's that. And finally, I know that I'm probably I'm just on 15 minutes, I think. How's that for timing? I want to just quickly show you this video that talks about the value of certification, okay? Thanks. That's it.
Thank you very much, Sia. And yes, you were on time, as you said. It was a lot of information packed in 15 minutes. So thank you for sharing. I've posted a few links in the chat as well to the various resources that you talked about. So there's a link to the main website, and then specifically a link to the handbook, which is incredibly helpful. I read from start to finish, and it tells you the entire process, all the information you could possibly need to know about it. And I also dropped a link to the IABC Code of Ethics as well, which is always good for us to know about, as you said. A few questions that have popped in from Rachel. Do you want to ask your questions, Rachel, as for a small group, rather than me just reading them out and you not having a say?
Yeah, thank you. I was just wondering, humble brag, does presenting on webinars or at conferences, does that count towards professional development, or is it not really, because you're imparting knowledge and showing off rather than learning from others?
So it doesn't count towards your training to apply, but it does count towards your continuing professional development. So you can get points for it once you're certified, but in the lead up to certification and making your application, no, it doesn't. That's
fine. I've been around for years. Thank you. And I was also wondering, if you take the exam and pass, hurrah, well done, Simon. When you renew, is there a fee for that? And is there another test or exam?
Yes, there is. So if you don't pass the exam, you will be provided
if you pass the exam, when you renew the following year, is there a fee?
Oh, yes, there's a $100 fee each year to renew, as well as providing the details around your continuing professional development points. So you have to demonstrate 40 ongoing CPD points and then pay that $100, the US dollars. Yep.
You don't have to sit another exam. It's just
yeah. And just, I guess, and I appreciate I interrupted you, but it might be useful for any of us who are scared of exams to know what is, if you fail the exam but wish to have another go, what's the fee there?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you do fail the exam, that's perfectly okay. It does happen occasionally. You can sit the exam immediately after, and I would absolutely encourage you to do that if you find yourself in that position. We've had lots of people here in Victoria and in Australia who have had a go at it and haven't passed, and because it's fresh in their mind, they've just had the experience, they've sat it immediately after, then they've passed the second time round. So I would absolutely encourage you to do that. In terms of the fee, I think you don't have to make an application, but you will have to pay us a fee. Can I come back to you on that? Off the top of my head, I can't remember, but there would be a fee. Yes,
you can tell
I will come back to you.
But no,
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Are there any other questions at this point before Andrew and I kind of go into a bit more of a personal experience of it?
I had just a question about the exam and the questions. Is there are there some sort of, I don't know, I obviously haven't read the handbook, but in the handbook, does it give you a sense of the areas that are covered and the types of questions that can come up? Does it give you a feel for that sort of? I remember a long time ago now sitting exams, and you'd have sort of dummy papers or dummy questions where you get a sense of what comes up.
And I found that really, really helpful. And there are practice questions in the candidate handbook. That toolkit I mentioned earlier that we have shared with chapter and region leaders has some practice exams. So there's a separate practice exam for the CMP and a separate practice exam for the Scmp, so you can get a feel of those questions. And I absolutely encourage you to take those practice exams, because that gives you a good idea about what kind of questions are included. Bear in mind, these questions are, and I'm sure Simon and Andrew have their own view on this, they can be a little American in their in the way that they are phrased, because they are written in America. But absolutely have a look at those practice questions, because it will help you to know what kind of questions are in the exam.
Thanks.
I do have a question. I was looking for some advice actually on how to decide whether to do the CMP or the Scmp. I guess because I can see most of what my current activity is in the CMP, but where I would like to go is more Scmp. So which is the best approach?
Look, that's a question, Susie, that comes up a lot. And my advice to prospective certificants is to look at your history, look at your work experience. Maybe if you have a coach or a mentor or a manager, I'm not sure where you work, if you're a consultant or you work in-house, speak to others, speak to Simon and Andrew and anyone else who has taken the exam and get their view. But I would start with your work experience and your history. Look at, and absolutely look at the job task analysis. If you compare the domains, okay, the domains I mentioned earlier, what you're measured against, and you look at the CMP and the Scmp and you think, actually, I'm probably stronger in the CMP, then go for the CMP. But if you look at the Scmp and you look at through that job task analysis, that includes the behaviors, the skills, the knowledge you're expected to have, and you feel that you have experience in each of those areas, and you do a practice exam and you pass the practice exam, then I would suggest you go for the Scmp, but talk to others. Honestly, there's a wealth of information out there. If you're an IBC member, jump on the hub. There's so much good advice out there from others who have done it. There's nearly 300 of us around the world. And I guarantee you, most of those people, if you ask for their help or their opinion, they would give it to you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
And perhaps this is a nice opportunity for Andrew and I to kind of step in and give you a little bit more of that personal feeling. And to your question, Susie, and hi, by the way, because I don't think we've met properly yet, but I think it's the thing about this certification is, and it might sound obvious, but it's assessing what you already know. So it's the level that you are operating at now that is the one that I would say you want to get the certification in. And if that's the CMP, great. And then you have the aspiration of the Scmp, fantastic. But as Sia said, the website is really helpful, and the handbook for giving you that confidence of knowing what you're kind of letting yourself in for and understanding what level you're at and where you need to head. So, and obviously very happy to, and I'm sure Andrew would as well, to have a chat with you after this if you feel that there's more questions that you've got, just let us know. But Andrew, I think it'd be interesting to kind of get your perspective on it. And we've talked a little bit about this before, and we've done a blog post, which I can also share the link to. But if we kind of revisit some of that material, why did you decide to sit the exam in the first place?
Well, thanks, Simon. Hello, everyone. For me, I wanted something that gave me back my confidence. It was the year of COVID, and I was working certainly less than I was expecting to work, and I had a bit of time on my hands. And I thought, can I still cut it at the high level in comms? And I felt that I could, but it was great to have an external endorsement of that fact. So that was my main motivation. And also because the last time I'd taken a professional exam was 2009. So it'd been at least a decade. And I thought, well, let's just check if I'm where the modern world needs me to be.
And I think mine was very similar. It was, 2020, I'd been indoors far too much. And I was desperate to have some kind of, I wanted a professional achievement in the year that was unlike any other year that any of us had experienced. And similarly, I mean, I'm a consultant and I have been for 5 years. I know from my experience of working with clients that I operate at that strategic level, but I really wanted to have something that kind of proved that I was. And actually, I say completely without any shame at all, I wanted letters after my name, because that was an important acknowledgement of the standard and the support that I offer and where I pitch myself. Because as a consultant, it's really helpful if you can show that you have that professional development. And it can lead through to, and I believe, Sia, there's kind of evidence to suggest this, it can lead to things like pay rises in the long term. It can support you with promotion, all of that kind of thing. So I think, that was one of the reasons for sitting it. And yes, also to your point, Andrew, I think the confidence piece, it's just nice to have that reassurance. And, it's kind of that official piece, and to have it by the end of the year is a brilliant way to end December. And to your points here about how quickly you get the results, we sat the exam, I was on the underground home and got a text message saying you passed. So that was phenomenally quick. I'm sure it's not always that quick, but it was literally about 2 hours later, because I imagine the process is all automated in the background. So but yeah, in terms of prep, Andrew, and I know we took different approaches on this one. What kind of preparation did you do for the exam?
Well, the first thing was that I made sure that I tuned into, there was a free webinar, a bit like this one, with an IABC fellow, chap called Brad Whitworth. And I think I also met him in person. So he talked through some of the main things, and I took some notes from that. I definitely also looked at the GCC website. There too, I think it was Mark's question earlier, there's some practice questions on there to give you a sense of, I mean, only half a dozen, I think, but it gives you a sense of what a question looks like. But I'll be frank, Simon, I wish I'd done more prep. I mean, I went in there backing my experience. I've got 20+ years in the profession. But there were definitely areas where I think, gosh, I really wish, like you, I'd reread the book, or, you know, looked at the, reread the Code of Ethics again. So I think I was relying on my experience and just making sure I understood the formats more than actually doing the academic side of preparation. How was it for you?
Yeah, and I think the reason why I kind of took a different approach is back to Sia's point around, you know, I'm an internal comms and change person through and through. Yes, I've been doing that for 14 years, but marketing, PR, all the other side of things, I felt like I needed to know a lot more. So I purchased the then latest version of the IABC handbook, which has now, there's a new version that has been release that is available on Amazon, and I will find a link in a few moments and ping that into the chat. But basically this was kind of, you know, the Bible of all things comms, and loads of IABC members and fellows writing about the key areas that they work in. And I just read that from cover to cover. Now, perhaps you don't need to go into the extent of where I was reading every book I could get my hand on. I was watching every webinar. I was reading. I also went to the webinar with Brad, which was really helpful. But I just wanted to make sure, I was always a bit of an all or nothing reviser. So this was all. And because it was a 3-hour exam, I also spoke to other people who'd sat it before, just to understand a bit more about how it worked. So on a practical level, I wanted to know, yes, they're multiple choice questions, but that can perhaps be a bit deceptive because that makes it sound easy. What it actually is you're faced with a scenario, you read a description, and then you have to choose the answer that best matches the response to that scenario. So it's not a case of there are 4 possible answers and 3 of them are clearly ridiculous and 1 of them is obviously the right answer. It is genuinely quite challenging that you have a couple of answers that are very plausible. Yes, there'll probably be 1 that's obviously not right, but at least a couple where it could absolutely be either. 1 is just more right than the others. So I spoke to other people just to get as much information as I could to understand, you know, can I go through the whole thing and go back to the ones that I don't know, or do I have to answer and then move on? Yes, you absolutely can do that, you know, just so that I felt more comfortable walking into the room on the day. And talking of walking into the room on the day, Andrew, it was, what was it? It was raining, I believe, because, you know, it was London and it was December. And it was you and I sat in that room. How did you find the actual experience of sitting the exam?
Yes, well, I mean, it's been years since I sat an exam of any kind. So walking in there and saying, you know, it still was quiet, and you know, fortunately, you know, Neil, our proctor, was a friendly face. But I was looking over at you and I was thinking, gosh, what if I fail and Simon passes? I
thought the same. I thought the same too, but the other way around, obviously.
Yeah. But no, one thing I would say is, look, you've got to get yourself, you know, you've got to be calm going into an exam, right? So, you know, you don't want to be going in there late, stressed, all those things. Maybe that's fairly obvious, but one thing I would say is, and this is talked to Sia's point about time management. She said that you got 3 hours, and you know, she felt that 2 hours was enough. Well, I think you and I were much closer to the 3 hours.
We were
going in there. I mean, if you think about it, 100 questions in 3 hours, whether you're doing the CMP or the Scmp, that's just over 1.5 minutes per question. So you've got a paragraph you have to read, and there's 4, I think it was, possible answers, and as you talked about. And you could switch between those different 6 topics. They're sort of jumbled up. And I remember going in there, question 1, I thought, I've got no idea what this question is talking about. And then I sort of had like not a panic attack. I suddenly thought, oh gosh, I've got 99 more of these. You know, how am I going to get through this? And I would say, keep calm and carry on, as the phrase is, and manage your time. So what I did was, obviously, I just thought I'm going to leave that. I'm not going to spend more than a minute or two on that first, looking at, well, if I spent even probably less than a minute on that first question, just looking, I've got no idea what that's talking about. So I went on to the second one, and I thought, oh, I think I've got a sense of this one. Because like you say, you probably have strengths and weaknesses. You may be really strong on digital, you may be strong on internal comms, you may be strong on reputation management or PR. There are some questions you go, I know that scenario, I've been in that sort of situation, and you're learning, you're being questioned on the areas you know about or should know about if you're taking the right level of exam. And so having done the second question, thinking, I think I know what the answer to that is, and I got into the zone. And it's like a flow, isn't it? I mean, psychologists talk about, I do coaching, so I know this, but you get into a sort of flow after about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, where your brain starts to go and you think, oh yeah, I've got some of this. But you do the ones you can, and the system has a facility for you to mark those questions that you want to come back to later. So my advice would be, get through in a steady flow to the end, but bear in mind, so I was looking at my watch and I was thinking every half an hour I've got to have completed, I think it was 15 or something questions or 18 questions. And if I haven't, then I've got to speed up. If I'm on track, then I just keep going. And at the end, I think there was at least a dozen questions I didn't answer at all, but I had 15, 20 minutes spare. And then I went back and I gave everything an answer, because, like 1 in 4 chance you might be right anyway. But, obviously you want to have a sense that you've answered the bulk of the questions. So that would be that was what it was like for me. And I actually had the satisfaction of getting up 5 minutes before you at the end.
You did.
I'm thinking, I'm out of here. I'm out. My brain is mush. I'm gone.
And particularly, that we were doing this after the year that we'd had. I mean, it's never easy. Clearly, it's meant to be a challenge. But to actually suddenly, I think I'd underestimated how difficult that was going to be, going from COVID brain to actually having to sit an exam. But my experience was very similar. The first question, not a clue, which is obviously not the ideal start that you want. But very quickly, skip over it, keep going. I think the thing you can be reassured by, and I remember I forget who told me this, which is bad, but once you've qualified, so you apply and you're told you can sit the exam, that means pretty much that you're ready. So be reassured by that. They're not going to let you sit the exam unless you're already at the standard where you stand a good chance of passing, because you go through that. It's not just an admin process, it's actually checking that you're genuinely ready. So do be reassured if you do get to that point, and then just go through, answer the ones you know, come back to the ones that you don't. And it was just, for me, my last 3-hour exam experience was when I was at school, and it was a business studies exam, which I almost failed and had to resit. So 3-hour exams in my head, I had to get over, even though that was a very long time ago. There was still that part of me going, oh, this is serious. This is a lot to go through. But actually, I think, the experience, I mean, Neil Griffiths proctored for us, and he was, as you say, friendly face, really helped. The proctoring is there really just obviously to make sure that you're not doing something that you shouldn't, which clearly you wouldn't anyway. But actually, it's just quite nice to go into a room and have someone there who's genuinely there to support you, to explain things. They can answer any questions if you have them, around that you're struggling with a system or whatever. But that was really helpful to have. And obviously getting the quick response was great. But we're both now getting to the point where we will have to put in our years personal development, because we'll have to recertify. And just to kind of say a little bit on that, and maybe Andrew, you've got a view, but I have found it quite easy to collect that evidence that I need. Hopefully this is obvious, but I saw a post the other day which made it sound like it was quite a revelation. So collect it through the year. Don't wait until the month before and then have to backtrack through all of your email looking for suggestions of what you've done. Say, yes, I have the privilege of being on the board for the UK and Ireland, so that counts for a big chunk of time. I also mentor a couple of people, so that also happens to account for quite a large chunk of development. Then you have all of the reading and the webinars and all of, a whole host of different things that I do. So yes, it's easy because I do quite a lot. And I think if you're the person who is sitting this exam, then you're probably someone, you care about your development, you're already going to be doing quite a lot. So you will find it quite easy because that will naturally be the sort of person you are. If you're someone who perhaps is a bit more distant and removed and doesn't spend the time, then yes, it will be more of a challenge. But I have all my points. I need to kind of wait and see. One question while you're here, Sia, and this is very personal, selfishly me asking, do you have to wait until the month of your renewal? So we qualified in December. Do we have to wait until December to submit that renewal? Or if you hit your points earlier in the year, can you reapply then?
You can absolutely reapply anytime you like. So
Okay.
that online program I just referred to in the chat is open all year round. And so you can input your ongoing PD as you go along. And by the same token, if you get to your renewal month, like mine's in September every year, and you think, oh, I've got lots on, or I can't get to it, there is a 3-month grace period. Okay, so as long as you renew within that 3 months, you're fine. It still goes to the same date range, so it'll be backtracked till September, but you do have a 3-month grace period as well. So yeah, you can track it as you go, renew anytime if you've got the points, and like you said, you're so active, 40 points, piece of cake.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, Andrew, but for me, the thing that really adds value to this is it's not a certification that's an assessment of me at a point in time. And in 10 years' time, someone can turn around and say, oh, well, that was 10 years ago, because you have to keep resubmitting and you have to keep proving that you're remaining relevant. So that's going to really help. I think it doesn't just become like, a GCSE was wonderful for me, but that was when I was 16. It doesn't really mean very much now. This will remain current. But yeah, anything else from you, Andrew, in terms of any other nuggets of information, things you wish you'd known?
Well, in terms of just on the of time here, I want to wrap it up from my side. But in terms of the renewal, I would just say the big ticket items, either things that give you more points, are things where it's a proactive contribution. You mentioned mentoring, presenting on comms, or taking a leadership role in the IABC on a committee. Even if you are not the president, you can be on a committee and you get 10 points for those things. Whereas if you turn up to the networking drinks, that's only a point. So that's an awful lot of drinks that you've got to attend to get yourself to your 40 points target. So I'd say look at a few big ticket items, use those as the base, and then so there tends to be 10 pointers, 5 pointers, and 1 pointers. So big contributions, 10 points, 5 points writing an article or something like that, 1 point attending an event. So that's the way I've approached that. Look, I would just say on the final thought on the exam is, go back to thinking where you are in your career. If you've had a good, broad and deep career, you're probably at Scmp level. If you're a director of comms or a director in an agency or a head of comms somewhere, chances are, as long as you've done the years, you'll have enough of exposure to take the Scmp. If you're more at the managerial level or an exec level, then you're probably better off in the GCCC exam. And there's no reason why you can't do one then the other as a sort of a dry run. Of course, it's going to cost you more money, but hey, I sit on a committee, an audit and risk committee with the IABC, and one of my fellow colleagues has the Scmp exam, and he's equally competent as me on this committee, but he's just younger and he's been around less time. And we bring something different, but he knows what he's doing, and he's yes, he is in Canada, but it doesn't mean you're a lesser being going for the Scmp. It just means that's where you are in your career. So absolutely. I would say look at those two things and then try one, and if not, try the other.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andrew. And thank you, Sia. I notice we're up to time. Just one final plug. Given that we obviously mentioned it's our member month. So if you do decide that you're interested in joining IABC this month, until the 12th of November, actually, you can get 20% off of the international dues part of the membership. All you need to do is type in the code IABC21 when you apply. This is particularly relevant for this because, as Sia mentioned, there's a difference in price between if you apply to sit the certification as a non-member, you're paying $400 to apply, versus $100 if you are an IABC member. And coincidentally, membership is around about that $300 mark. So you effectively get a 3 years membership for IABC as well, if you were to choose to join. So I think that's something definitely to consider. Hopefully this gives you an idea that we're a great bunch of people and we have a lot of fun, and there's always a lot of really interesting events going on and opportunities to get involved. So please do reach out to me if you want to have a chat as well. And let us know if you have any other questions, either about certification, membership, anything else IABC related. We're here to help. So on that note, thanks ever so much, Sia, for joining us, and Andrew as well. Really appreciate you giving up your time, and hopefully see you all again very soon. So have a great rest of your day, weekend when we get there.
Thanks,
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Bye.
you too.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.